to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! ISB!
43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, everybody, welcome aboard. Thanks a lot for being with us here on this Monday. Getting your week started, no better way than to have our friend Greg Rakestraw from the ISB Sports Network with us, because there's a lot going on. There was a ton going on in Indiana sports over the weekend, but none bigger than Indiana High School as the girls get set now for the state finals, and the boys sectional pairing draw came out, which everyone was waiting for. Greg, how are you, sir? How was your weekend?
I'm good, my friend. I'm smiling for a couple of reasons. A, I always enjoy starting my day with you on Mondays, and B, I love that Kurt Signetti quote. I win. Google me. Again, I hope that Indiana football is as half as good as he thinks he is. That means the Hoosiers are going to be great coming up this fall. I love the bravado. I hope you can back it up, but that quote makes me smile every time I hear it come into the show.
I'm right behind you. It gives me a chuckle. There's no better way to start off with than that. But you were a busy man and will continue to be, as the girls are about at the finish line as the state finals are set. The boys just getting ready to get that party started.
Correct. And so obviously we're down to 8 teams left playing the girls basketball state finals, the 1A final. A little partial to Lanesville and Marquette Catholic.
I saw that. Congratulations, the Eagles.
You know,
hey, but let me tell you, I am very, very familiar with part of the reason of their success.
Sure.
It's the combo of Joe and Angie Hinton. Angie gets the credit, of course, but it cannot be that bad having an assistant coach or somewhat Joe Hinton along for the ride as well.
Correct. And it's amazing how much more popular Joe Hinton is in Lanesville than he was about 15 years ago.
Yes.
I remember B just randomly happened to be at a game in 2006 when he was coaching Paoli on the boys' side, and Lanesville beat them. And the ovation those kids got, they had no idea the reason they got it. But a lot of the old-time Lanesville folks who had, you know, we didn't play Floyd Central that much. When we did, it didn't go that well. Joe's been around long enough. He dates back to being a heck of a player at Georgetown High School, which was a rival of Lanesville's back in the day, but before consolidation in the late 60s. And so there are a lot of old school Lanesville folks that Joe Hinton usually meant a loss. And now that has obviously changed so significantly over the last 6 or 7 years. And the run that this team has been on is just staggeringly good. Their last 2 losses, Jim, are to the same team. Evansville Memorial in the last 2 Decembers are the last teams that have beaten Lanesville. Now, Marquette Catholic is a good team, and Marquette Catholic, like Lanesville, you know, has played an up schedule. I think Lanesville kind of peeled back their schedule, honestly, a little bit this year. Maybe played a bit fewer 3A and 4A teams, but Marquette Catholic plays those teams in Northwest Indiana on a regular basis. So I think there'll be a little less shock and awe factor when they face Lanesville. But the way Lanesville played on Saturday, especially in the championship game against a North Central team that played them to a 1-point game in November, Lanesville won that game by 36 points on Saturday in the championship game. So Eagles are primed and ready to make it back-to-back and then make their way to 2A for the next 2 years.
And for those of you that don't know, and most of you probably won't, Joe Hinton is connected to Floyd Central,
of course,
just like Bob Knight is connected to Indiana. And I use that analogy because on the court, they were extraordinarily similar, both very successful and very animated, I guess is the right word to say. But the difference was off the court, Joe's as nice a guy as you're ever going to meet on the planet Earth. He becomes a different person between those lines.
Again, Joe is one of the legends of Indiana high school basketball, and I don't think it's just Southern Indiana high school basketball either. Kind of like Jack Kiefer in terms of, being the only coach that Lawrence North had, for the span of 40 plus years. That was Joe for the first 30-ish years of Floyd Central High School. Again, went from Georgetown to Floyd Central very early in the Floyd Central days, leading them, led by Kevin Wright in that amazing 71.
Look at you, man.
And you get one of the great team nicknames in all time, the Super Hicks, that led them to the Final Four back in 71. Then obviously Pat Graham's team that got there in 89 as well. And then obviously that was kind of where the success ended. It was a long sectional drought at Floyd Central after that point.
They fired Joe Hinton
to build that program up for the first 20-ish years of its existence is a tremendous accomplishment. And the fact that he's still sitting on a bench in his mid-80s is a pretty cool accomplishment too.
Yeah, it's crazy. Very, very fortunate. But yes, congratulations to the Lanesville ladies as they roll on as well. And now the sectional draw for the boys is set. And man, I looked at just one of the sectionals and I'm like, holy cow, you've got Attucks and Lawrence. I think Lawrence North is in that. Warren Central's in that. I'm like, who wants to play in that? And well, then you go back down south, Floyd Central, New Albany, Jeffersonville, all in the same sectional. Do we have too many good teams in the same sectionals now?
Well, that's going to change a little bit next year because the way the classifications are going to change. And so for those that don't follow us closely, instead of having an equal number of teams in 1A through 4A because of the widening enrollment gap at the top end, and largely because of the sheer size of the majority of the Indianapolis schools. So let me put this in perspective and let me go to football. 32 teams in the top division of high school football in 6A. About 20 of those are from the Indianapolis area. So you have got a couple of mega schools in the South Bend area. You've got maybe 4 or 5 in the region. You've got 2 or 3 of those in Fort Wayne. You really have one south of Columbus. That's Jeffersonville.
Yeah.
There is no 6A school in Evansville, to put that in perspective. And so knowing that football went that route about 12 years ago to kind of separate the largest of the large, we're going to start to try to do that in basketball, in softball, in baseball, and volleyball, in the 4-class sports. This won't affect football. This won't affect soccer, which is a 3-class sport. But we're going to go to percentages. So the top 20% will be in 4A. That'll take 4A from a little over 100 schools to 80 schools. Basically, the cutoff will be about 1225 and up. You will play in the large division. Then it is 25%, much like it is now, in 2A and 3A. Then in single A, it will be the remaining 30%. And so most single A sectionals will be 7 or 8 team sectionals now. Still mostly 6 teams for 2A and 3A. It'll be 4 or 5 team sectionals. I mean, there may be a couple of 4 team sectionals in 4A just to reduce travel costs. Like, for example, I think there's going to be 4 schools, maybe 5 of that group in Evansville. If that's going to be 4, I'm not sure they're going to, force New Albany or Jeffersonville to drive to Evansville to play in a sectional like that. And so, there will be some changes. So, let me give you the example that I have off the top of my head. Cathedral and Attucks, which are 2 of the best teams in the state, they're likely in 3A next year. Cathedral won the 4A championship 2 years ago.
Nice drop.
Attucks is a contender for the 4A champion. Frankly, Cathedral is too this year. And so the sectionals will look very different than they do this year. But now to your bigger point, Jim, in terms of these sectionals being stacked, that's the nature of playing in 4A these days. I mean, that's what's happened over the last 30 years is that, this is no longer, New Albany's going to have their path out of this sectional, and then New Albany and Floyd in the same sectional for the last 6 years because I played in that sectional. Or Jeff has the path here, or Bedford North Lawrence has the path here. And those schools now all play each other, which has made those sectional championships all the more impressive at the 4A level over the course of the last quarter century, where the talent is truly packed, Jim. 3 sectionals that go in 2 different directions. Sectional 8 is the Hamilton County sectional. And I realize Zionsville is in Boone County. We kind of throw them into the Hamilton County sectional as well. Now you've got sectional 9, which has gotten really good all of a sudden because Greenfield has gotten good because of Braylon Mullins. And New Pal has gotten good with numerous players. Julius Gizzi, who is second in the state in scoring this year, also as a junior. Mount Vernon's got a truckload of sophomores that are going to be really good in the next couple of years. Anderson has had a resurgence. Richmond's got their best team in a decade. They're all in the same sectional. And then sectional 10, which has been kind of the Northeast Indianapolis corner sectional with LN, Cathedral, and Attucks leading the way this year, but every team has at least 12 wins. It's just there's a lot of good teams in Central Indiana, and they're all in the same sectionals, which makes my job as a broadcaster, very easy and a lot of fun.
Looking forward to it as the tournament gets underway. Always one of the most special things that there are. Indiana high school basketball sectional play. It's just magical, and it always has been, always will be. Anything come out of this that surprised you that you said, got your attention?
No, from a draw standpoint, at least at the largest levels, for a lot of the good teams avoided each other, at least to the semifinals. Maybe not the case as much in sectional 9, where Mount Vernon and New Pal will see each other the first game Tuesday night. Greenfield Central and Anderson will play each other on Wednesday night for a second consecutive year. Greenfield went to the game against Anderson last year 21-1 and lost. I think it's a different case this year. Greenfield Central, again, the Mullins kid that obviously IU is on, Purdue is on, Notre Dame is on, Butler is on. Everybody would like for him to come play for them. While he's got maybe a little bit less experience and talent around him than last year's team did, he is so good. In a junior class that is ridiculously deep, he, Trent Sisley are amongst the best of the best that are in that group. In terms of Southern Indiana, a draw that got my attention was the 2A draw in sectional 47. Sullivan and Paoli are both really good, and the winner gets Linton Stockton on a Friday night. That was a very top-heavy draw as far as that is concerned. Brownstown sectional 46 that has Brownstown, Southwestern, and Providence. They all seem to avoid each other until at least the semifinals. But no, what struck me in doing the draw last night, Jim, is that I can point to a favorite in 2A in Brownstown, even with other really good teams in 2A like Tipton and Wapahane. I can point to a favorite in 1A like Evansville Christian, although Orleans and Bar Reeve are right behind them, and they would see each other, one combination of those two likely in terms of a regional. In 3A and 4A, man, it is wide open. In 4A, it's because there's so many really good teams. There's a path for a lot of them. In 3A, I've never seen a group that's this wide open where I have no earthly idea what two teams I'm going to see in that championship game on March 30th.
Well, we can't wait. Does play start next weekend?
Correct. So next Tuesday. So if you're in a 5, 6, or 7 team sectional or an 8 team sectional, there's a couple of those as well, you play on Tuesday. If it's a 5 team, if it's 7 teamer, you play once. If it's 6 or 8, you see 2 games on Tuesday. If you play on a Wednesday, it means you've got 7 or 8 teams in your sectional, and you'll have 2 games on Wednesday night. By the time we get to Friday, Mother Nature permitting, we will have 4 semifinalists in 64 different sectionals across the state of Indiana. And that, Jim, may be my single favorite night of basketball in this state. Sectional semifinal Friday night. Usually you got a lot of good teams left playing by that point in time, and you're 1 game away from starting to play for trophies. So put it on your calendar next Friday, March 1st. I think that's the best night of basketball this state has to offer.
Looking forward to it, and make sure you are following Greg Rakestraw on the ISC Sports Network, and go there to follow any of your favorite teams and the IHSA as it goes forward. Greg, cannot thank you enough.
Thanks, Jim. Talk to you next week.
Absolutely. Greg Rakestraw from the ISC Sports Network joining us here on this Monday to kick things off. We've got more coming up, of course. The voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer, joins us in this hour. We've got more coming up. Back with all of that, brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East, located just off of College Ball Road in Bloomington, site of After the Game with Todd Leary, in addition to some great pizza and more. But we're back right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. Oh, yeah, baby.
I gotta say, I'm usually not one to complain about uniforms, but those black uniforms were ugly that Indiana played in.
You know what? I couldn't.
They look more like practice jerseys to me, you know?
That's something that I said. That's the only thing that I would knock them for. But they weren't black, number one. They were dark gray.
Yeah, that's true. It wasn't like it was a true black.
Not that matters.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
Were they marketing the game as a blackout or no?
No.
Just an alternate jersey?
Yeah. But here. Whoa. If Indiana won that game yesterday, what the fuck?
What about if they won the game yesterday?
If Indiana had won that game yesterday, how many people would be saying that they should be wearing those jerseys all the time?
There'd be some people who would.
I'm not kidding. The jerseys are the least problem Indiana has. Don. Oh, I forgot about Dustin. And from Boiler Upload.
Yeah, Travis.
He's not going to be happy to be on.
I cannot believe that they found a way to lose to Ohio State. Of all teams. I mean, I guess Michigan might have been a hair worse to lose to, but daggone. You lose to Ohio State.
Russell, this is something that I have already actually put out on Twitter a while back, but those numbers are not correct.
Here we go. 10 seconds. I guess Don might be a couple minutes late, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll manage.
Usually isn't.
Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday. I hope you're having a good start to your week. And if not, we can hope you head in that direction on this 19th day of February. Hopefully the weather continues to warm up and get rid of some of this snow. We got it pretty good. I forget what day that was when that came in, but maybe Friday. I was just working away and looked up and I'm like, oh my gosh, what has happened? Everything's white outside. But looking forward to Don Fischer joining us here in just 2 seconds. Don, how are you, sir?
I'm all right.
Of course, Indiana coming off of a tough loss at home to Northwestern and Boo Booey and crew. I could sure create the. I say this a lot when you're not on the show, Don, but the world's greatest drinking game would be Boo Booey. You taking a shot every time you hear the name Boo Booey, and boy, you wouldn't make it to halftime. But it was not Boo Booey that led the way for the Wildcats this time, but they are able to get it done inside the Simon Scott Assembly Hall on Sunday.
Yeah, they did. I thought in this ball game, Jim, there were three
three real problems for Indiana. Obviously, the free throw shooting was one of the major ones, knocking in 12 of 21, which is 57% from the free throw line, which is poor, without question. Giving up 28 free throws to Northwestern, and they make 22. Now, granted, a lot of those were in the last few minutes of the ball game when Indiana was trying to stretch the game out to give themselves a chance. So part of that's there, but they're making them. They're making them. They're knocking them down. And obviously, their 79% from the free throw line was so much better than Indiana's 57%. The rebounding differential, not dramatic. One more rebound for Northwestern than Indiana, but 14 of those rebounds for Northwestern were offensive boards, which gave second chance points to Northwestern to a dramatic degree. And then the other area was the turnovers. Indiana had just 11, which is in the ballpark, which Mike Woodson says, that's in the area of where we want to be with turnovers. However, Northwestern turned the ball over 3 times. And Indiana scored no points off those 3 turnovers, and Northwestern scored 11 off of Indiana's 11 turnovers. So
you hit the exact same points that I hit on the post-game show with Todd Larry the other day. It's the little things. I said, man, because Indiana outshoots Northwestern 51% to 35 for the game, and any other time. And they hit 5 of their last 7 shots. Northwestern finishes hitting 1 of their last 11. But as you just pointed out, those the disparity in free throws, the disparity in offensive rebounds, and those second chance points, and the points off of turnovers, I think that it ended up being a plus 27 for Northwestern right there in a 4-point game. So it doesn't take a mathematician to figure that out.
No, it does not. And those are the kinds of things right now that this team is dealing with, that if this doesn't change, and we're not seeing that this is probably going to change at this juncture, they've got to be better at the free throw line. They've been poor at the line all year long as a team. I think, 64% going into the ball game at the free throw line. Wait a second. Yeah, 64% in Big Ten play at the free throw stripe this year. In Big Ten play, that's got to change, and it's a confidence thing. I think it's confidence and the mental side of basketball with this team shooting free throws at this point. Mackenzie Mbako, who is Indiana's best free throw shooter at 85%, misses his first free throw in the first half, has only 2 points, I think, is that right, at halftime, or just had 1. He had 1 point at halftime and then scored 19 in the second half. So his first miss, though, for your best free throw shooter. And from that point forward, Indiana, barely makes 50%. So
now, did you notice the person for Northwestern clapping?
No.
I figured you did because of the headphones, but there was a la Greg, what's his name's wife, the former coach at Wichita State. His wife used to whistle or something during the opposing team's free throws. There was one person that was clapping at an odd progression, and I'm like, I think that might be working, because it was so quiet in Simon Scott Assembly Hall, but all you could hear was that clapping during the IU free throws, and I'm like, doing a good job.
Well, it may have maybe it was a factor, and here's my thing on that. It's a concentration thing, number one, and the mental thing, number 2. So if they're listening or hearing that and it's bothering them, we're in trouble. I mean, that's all you can say. I mean, players go to the free throw line. They know if it's a home game, it's going to be quiet, and if it's a road game, it's going to be they're screaming their butts off. So. Again, this is a basketball team. If they're that fragile, then this season's lost. I mean, it's that simple. It's a ball club right now. They had 7 days to get ready for this game. So there wasn't any, it couldn't have been that they were tired or anything from that, unless they're practicing for 7 hours a day. So that's not the issue. Having the right amount of energy and the intensity level to play with. And I didn't think I thought Indiana played hard in this ball game. I don't think that was the issue. Malik Renew had a down ball game. He's struggling a little bit right now. I think more than anybody else in this basketball team, it's affected his mentality a little bit, how the season has gone. And I think he's frustrated. And obviously gets himself into foul trouble again, which, that's been an ongoing issue for him throughout the season. But in most games, he's able to handle that. Unfortunately, in this ball game, he was not, and he gets booted with fouls out of the ball game. And now he has 9 points and 5 rebounds, and is not much of a factor. So if it's not one thing, it's something else with this ball club, and it's ongoing at this point, and it's got to stop. If they're not going to get this stopped, this is going to be an awful end to a basketball season that many people thought was going to be a very promising year for Indiana.
Yeah, the starting guards as well, Don, total of 9 personal fouls between them, with Gabe Cupps fouling out and Trey Galloway having 4 to go along with that. Just shows that trying to keep up with Northwestern's guards, which we knew that coming in, that was their forte, their guard play. It was that, and the interior play that they got was a little surprising for me, to be honest with you. I thought that although Khalil Ware did have a great day with 22 points on 10 of 14 shooting, 16 rebounds, it was Mackenzie Renew. He was continued to struggle, like you said. I thought that Indiana could just dominate in the paint, and they were able to do that on just one side, not the other.
Well, and here's what I think people miss when you talk about Northwestern. They have 3 bigs: the Preston kid, Hunger, and then Nicholson, who was their starter. Those 3 guys share the floor all game long. They wear you out with there's 2 of them are 6'10", 1 7 foot. Nicholson is a big 280-pound guy. He bangs in there with the best of them without question. And I think they wear you down a little bit in that context. I think because he uses all 3 of those guys, and they're all fresh when they come into the ball game. And Nicholson, he was spectacular yesterday. His best game perhaps of the season, 14 points and 16 rebounds. He was a dominant factor in the contest. And so, again, I actually felt like if Khalil Ware was going to have the game that he did, that Indiana would probably win this contest, because he had 22 points and 16 rebounds. Because I thought the bigs for Northwestern would be a factor in the ball game. And I also thought Boo Buie would be a bigger factor. And I thought Gabe Cupps' job defensively on him and Galloway as well, when they were both guarding the guy, he couldn't do much of anything yesterday. He was pretty much stopped. But it was the other guys who killed Indiana in this contest. The Langborg kid was 26 points. And that's the issue with this ball club. They can't, when one thing's going badly, and that there are other guys that have to step up, and we just don't see that.
Yeah, the one area that Indiana had great success was transition. 14-0 in fast break points, which tells me that, hey, you got to get this team on their heels, Northwestern. Keep them moving, because Indiana, obviously with great success there, but just not enough of it.
Well, Eric Sewer, my color analyst, has said all year long, when Indiana's playing its best basketball, they are pushing it. They are aggressive. They are pushing the ball down the floor, getting into the offense quickly, and that's when they can take advantage of the other team. And this ball club struggles to do that on a consistent basis. They get down there. Now they're in a half-court set. They move the ball around. It's not like they're just standing there dribbling, but they don't seem to get in. If they don't get into the offense quickly, they don't do nearly as well. And there's they can't play Wisconsin basketball. They can't try to run the shot clock down for the last shot in that 30-second segment. That's just not Indiana's game. And when they don't get off and don't get down the floor quickly, and then when they don't push it and they aren't aggressive, they don't play as well.
Well, Northwestern was a team that needed that win, as did Indiana, but they needed that win, just like Indiana's upcoming opponent, the Nebraska Cornhuskers, as they come in to Bloomington this Wednesday. They're also needing to stay on that winning side, because they're probably in the tournament, but maybe. They're a maybe. They're not securely in there. So they are desperately looking for that W.
There's no question. Nebraska has yet to win a road game this year in Big Ten play. They have one road win this season. That was against Kansas State, and that came back in December. This is a Nebraska team that's much improved over a year ago. They proved that against Indiana in their first meeting when they clobbered Indiana in Lincoln. And not a good performance by the Hoosiers. That was the restart of Big Ten play back on January the 3rd. It's a ball club that can beat you in a number of ways, but they are a team that likes to shoot the three. And I'm telling you right now, the guy, in my opinion, that they've got to stop. I know everybody talks about Tominaga, but I think C.J. Wilcher's the guy that Indiana has to stop, because he sees Indiana on the jersey and he goes nuts. Look at the first game box score. This guy, and every game that he's played against Indiana in the past, he has been a major factor. So, especially if Indiana got beat by them. And generally speaking, you go to Nebraska, you're going to have your hands full. But when they go on the road, they struggle. And Indiana has an opportunity this week against two teams that they are capable of beating if they play their best basketball: Nebraska and Penn State. You want to turn this season around, this is the week that you do it. And if you don't do it this week, it's not going to happen, I don't think, this year.
Yeah, if they're able to do that, that gets them back to 500 in Big Ten play, which would be huge for this Indiana team, and would put them a little higher above. They're currently 14-11 overall. Getting to that 17 win mark would be a big boost as they head toward the end of the season.
Well, you and I both know that every team in this league tries to avoid one thing: not playing in the first night of the Big Ten tournament. And if you play the first night of the Big Ten tournament, whatever your hopes are or whatever you think you can do, it ain't going to happen if you play on Wednesday to get to Sunday. I mean, I'm not saying it can't happen, but it rarely ever does. And let's face it, this ball club right now, their only hope, unless they win all 6 of their last ball games, is the Big Ten tournament.
Absolutely. And tonight at Chop Shop, you were back there with Mike Woodson. Is he back in town for that?
I assume he is. I haven't heard differently. So we're expecting Mike to be on hand for this evening's show at 7:05.
7:05 inside Indiana men's basketball with Don Fischer and Coach Mike Woodson. Don, I cannot thank you enough.
Appreciate you guys having me. See you.
Absolutely. There he is, the voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer, joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Lots more coming up. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star up next here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home, I don't think they can catch him. Ooh, there's that. Can Illinois catch Purdue?
Excuse me.
Nope. Home game, road game. Boy, Purdue's the rest of the Purdue schedule. Their final 5 games they have got set up with. They play at home against Rutgers. They travel to Michigan, which should be nothing, which so should have Ohio State. But then they're back at home against Michigan State. They do have to travel for Illinois, so that's the toughest one. And then back at home against Wisconsin. So they have 3 rather challenging games, but only one of them is on the road. 4 challenging games, but only one of them is on the road. Well, now we can talk about the uniforms that everyone hates so much.
All right. 20 seconds. I guess Dustin Dopirak may or may not join us. We'll see.
Well,
So
we
here we
shall
go.
see.
Honda Ridgeline's payment-free for 90 days or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to andymorehonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Porter, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday. Coming to you, brought to you by our good friend Cheryl Sizemore and Remax Realty. For those of you in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl's 2 decades of experience. Could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Over the weekend, of course, Indiana loses at home to Northwestern in a game many thought that they had a shot in. The guard play of Northwestern, not as prolific in that game as many thought it would be. It was just as much their interior play, but like Don pointed out, but as we also talked about on the postgame show with Todd Leary, there were those that the same 3 area of stats that Don pointed out, we talked about on the postgame show, because it was fairly obvious. When you outshoot a team 51% to 35%, but that's mainly the difference there. Indiana hit 4 more field goals in totality than Northwestern. But Northwestern hits 2 more threes. But really, you go down to the free throws, the differential there's +9 all by itself for Northwestern in a 4-point game. +9 differential. And it wasn't because Indiana did not have the opportunity. They hit 5 free throws, just 5 more of the 9 they missed, and you're in the lead. The turnovers, points off of. And there was somebody a while back who argued this was a stupid stat. No, it's not. Because a lot of times none of those were in transition, I guess, because they did not get any fast break points, but 11-0 in points off of those turnovers. And then the rebounding, they out rebound Indiana by 1, but most importantly, offensively, 14 offensive rebounds. That's more than half of their rebounds. Well, not more than half their total, but defensively they had 24, but 14 offensive rebounds to 6. It's just a matter of hustle. It's a matter of being in the right position. This stuff is not accidental. Being the 326th or whatever they are now, worst free throw shooting team in the country, it's not accidental, people. Just like the teams that are not that bad, that are that good, it's not accidental. There are things that are being done on those teams that are preventing that from being the case. And I'm not in either practices of the teams that are leading the country in free throws, just like I'm not in the practices of the teams like Indiana who can't hit a free throw if they were in a boat trying to hit water. But there is a reason the guys that are on that basketball team, I promise you, all of them shot better free throws in high school, except for maybe one. But these are
fundamental areas we're talking about: rebounding, turnovers, and free throws. Seriously, stop and think about that. Rebounding, turnovers, and free throws. Fundamentals, fundamentals, fundamentals. This team is not fundamentally sound. And there are reasons that'll be made. Oh, well, we've got this person in. Every team has issues, except for maybe UConn. And it had nothing to do with the uniforms, by the way, that everybody. If those uniforms had been pink and purple striped and they won this game by 20, everybody would be calling for them to wear those uniforms all the time. My only issue with them, like I said earlier, is they just look like they were practice gear. But at the end of the day, I couldn't care less what an alternate uniform looks like unless it was completely off the grid. And I would not call that completely off the grid. It's not 1982 a uniform, that's for sure. But we don't live in 82, and that's not a focus. That's just the least of things that if you're an Indiana fan, you should be complaining about, in my estimation. And Russell, welcome to, he said it's come to his attention that IU pays more money to not coach than IU than it pays to coach. But brother, you've been missing out, because talked about that multiple times. Your numbers are not exactly right, like I said. The buyout for Tom Crean was $4 billion. The buyout for Archie was 10 even. And that's also a reason why I said that's one of the reasons why there will be no change this year, because Scott just had to pay $15.5 million to Tom Allen because of a contract extension that he gave. He did not give the Archie Miller contract, but that's why, in my opinion, Fred Glass just happened to resign right before they fired Archie Miller. But the $4 million paid to Crean, I think that if Indiana waits until after this season, which through next season, I think it comes to $35 million in total, what is called dead money. And yes, I talk about that every day. The job I want is to be a fired coach at Indiana. That is the job to have. It's not a sign of that things are going well in your athletics department. But it's not the only place. I mean, of course, Texas A&M makes everyone else look like chump change with the $77 million that they paid to Jimbo Fischer just to go away. One guy. But Indiana has now 6 games remaining on their schedule, and I keep hearing, whenever I hear people say, if they, what ifs? Where are you coming up with these ifs? There are no ifs for this team, in my opinion. This team is what they are. As Dennis Green said, we knew what they were, we let them off the hook. Well, you know what this team is. You've seen it. You've seen this movie play out. I'm not trying to be negative, but why would I expect any type of a change over the course of the final 6 games when there has been nothing close during the entire regular season? Started like this, ending like this. I don't know if there's
how deeply the frustration is being felt by players? That's a question I'd love to know. But it is what it is. John, if you get a chance, pull up, work on it, and then after our next break, of course, we can use it. But
I'm doing that right now, actually. I'll get you I'm getting some Woody sound and something from... Oh, go ahead.
Be interested to hear what he had to say, because I was doing the post-game show, of course, with Todd Leary, and I did not get to hear it. But
yeah, we'll try and have a few quotes from them by after our next break.
Not a problem. Looking forward to that. But at this point, there has to start being some acceptability that I don't see. I see a lot of reasons. I hear a lot of reasons, but the accountability, who's taking the accountability? I haven't seen any accountability. As you heard Don just say, that this is a season that most people thought would be a good one for the Hoosiers. I don't know how good I thought it would be, but I didn't think it would be this bad. Why should it be? When you have Malik Renew coming back, when you add a Khalil Ware who has had the season he has had, Xavier Johnson losing a player like that is a ding. But with the things that went on during the year, how much of a loss was it? Turned out not to be. This team is just a rudderless ship. It just is a rudderless ship. It's getting no leadership on the court, and it doesn't appear as if off the court the leadership is the greatest. But it appears. I don't know. I'm not in those conversations. And I won't pretend that I am, because I'm not. But I would sure think. I don't understand. Todd Leary talks about this team just has to do something different. I agree with that. Stop doing what you've done that has not worked over the course of this season. And if that means taking 33-point shots, and I don't care that's not this team's greatest asset, put them up, because you hit 2 more 3-point shots in that game against Northwestern, you win the game. There are so many little things that they could have done over the course of that game that they just didn't do. They don't do. And that kind of bears itself out as what you have. Sam said, let's see. They're talking, there's a NIL discussion. Oh, no, this goes back to the buyouts, which, like I said, is not, those numbers are not exactly right. But I wonder if Indiana has, I would have to research to spread it around, because no one can compare to Texas A&M, like I said, with Jimbo Fisher's ridiculous $77 million buyout. But you got to take that one off the table. That's, nobody else has anything close to that. So football and basketball, both sports as a school, where are you in your hiring and your success? Very curious. Dustin Dopirak, fresh off of working a hard weekend, I'm sure, with the All-Star game. Did you get MVP? I couldn't. I thought I missed the end of it.
You know what? I should have, Jim. Telling you what, man. Carried the whole thing. No, I did not. Damian Lillard got it. there was controversy. At least Indiana fans thought, or Pacers fans thought Tyrese Halliburton should have got it. He had a case. He certainly had a much more efficient night last night than Damian Lillard did. I think Lillard was 13. I have to look. I think it was 16 of 29 from the field. Halliburton was 11 of 15, 10 of 14 from three, hit his first 5 threes. Was really rolling there. And so, didn't try to push it to take too many shots. Obviously, Lillard was taking half court stuff. So people were thinking, hey, I think, Halliburton deserves this thing. And he got 5 votes. Basically, there was a 12-vote panel of all national people. And Lillard ended up winning it 7-5. So, I mean, it was close. There was a lot of discussion on that one. Obviously, people looking at it differently. But Damian Lillard ends up being the guy, for All-Star MVP in 2024.
Is 29 shots? That sounds like a record for an All-Star game.
No, it's the All-Star game. There's no one's trying to
no defense. I know. No defense.
No, none whatsoever. No, it was 26. He was 14 of 26. Jaylen Brown took 23 shots. He was more efficient, 15 of 23. I mean, it and to their, there was obviously a discussion about that after. There was discussion leading in as to what has to be done to improve the All-Star game, basically to make it more competitive. And, Adam Silver was hoping that going to East-West and going back to just having a regular 48-minute game was going to make it more competitive, was going to force guys to look at it differently and bring back kind of the old conference rivalry concept. And it didn't really matter. And I thought, just obviously having been around it all week and getting a sense of what it was going to be like and how they were handling it. I mean, I just really thought that these guys are just so ridiculously offensively skilled, and they're just trying to put on a show, and they're not trying to make it, this contest where everybody, really, really wants to win. And it's just not, I just don't see anything changing it, unless you really amp up the money situation. And I don't know how you do that. Like, I don't know how much money it would take for them to really grind down and play defense, because it's just like, and because part of it, they're like, well, what's the point? If Damian Lillard is going to pull up from half court, like, I'm not defending him at half court. If he hits the half court shot, I'm going to tip my cap and go, like, I'm not hurting myself over this, like, we're going to have a good time. Like, we're going to, run and dunk and shoot threes from wherever, like, let's just have a good time. So I get why they just don't think that it's going to just go, that you're going to be able to change it, that you're going to be able to make them to, play defense like it's the playoffs, because it's not the playoffs. It's just not. And, they have 3 more games coming in a week. They're trying to keep their bodies ready for 82 and then a playoff series. So I get it, and I just don't know that you're going to fix it. You almost have to just embrace the silliness of it. I mean, that's, just from a watching it perspective, I found myself laughing on press row frequently, and I don't know that was bad. Yeah.
Well, that means enjoyment. Of course, Steph Curry ends up beating Stephanie Ionescu in that classic 3-point setup, and already suggested that next year Damian Lillard and Steph Curry take on Ionescu and potentially Caitlin Clark.
I think that's great. I mean, I think it's great. I joked, I mean, they should ask Tyrese. They should ask Tyrese. Lillard could do it, but like, I mean, they could do a Team Indiana thing. If Caitlin Clark comes out and gets drafted.
Great call, Dustin Dopirak.
Just saying. And Tyrese is a big proponent of women's basketball. Very big proponent. Really his dad coached was coaching girls basketball when he was born. So he has always been somebody who really goes out of his way to push the women's game, was, pushing is even before the Fever picked Aaliyah Boston, was really making a point of saying, that she was going to be a big deal for the Fever and everything. So I think he'd be really good. Obviously Dame would be cool too, but like Halliburton, first off, is, star is ascending. You have a chance again, if providing the Clark comes out and providing that the Fever pick her, and there's a 0% chance that if she comes out that they won't pick her. I think that'd be a cool deal if you make it a 2-person deal and you have Clark and Ionescu and you have Halliburton and Curry. I think that'd be really, really cool. And
Be fun. Hey, we've got to take a quick break. We've got lots more coming up. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star is with us, and we're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the mark. Did you have fun?
I suppose. It was a lot.
I'm assuming everything we saw on the court was just TV orchestrated as far as the how they were illuminated and all of that, or was that? Could you see that there in some way?
On Saturday night?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, the LED court was real thing. Like that. That's
oh wow.
See that live. I mean, like so. I'll say this: where we were, my wife MJ went to it. She got tickets, and she thought it was awesome. And so I couldn't tell everything. I couldn't see everything because we were press was behind, or my press seat at least was like behind the baseline. Was on the baseline. And so we were pretty low down. Like, I mean, I had a good seat, basically I was like, I think it was the first row down there. So I didn't catch all of it, but you could see like all the changing things. I mean, that was the deal. It was an LED lighted court. I have no idea how they did it, but that was the deal. It was like all the illumination, all of that at Lucas Oil, was this new innovation that they came up with for this event that nobody had ever seen before. They hadn't tried before. I mean, it was crazy looking. It was wild, and like even from what I could see, it was pretty nuts. But so even from on high, the higher on TV or from a higher vantage point, you really saw the whole deal, and it was really cool stuff. I think. I thought it was a little much on some level, and I don't know that you want to make that a some kind of constant. But for the dunk contest, I thought it was really cool. I thought the thing that really, the Terrence Clark thing with Jaylen Brown, I thought was really cool. Just having his face in the paint, I thought was a cool deal. I don't think Jaylen Brown should have made the finals, but I thought, his tribute to Clark having his face on the paint was a really cool thing. So
It cracks me up that there was a guy in the dunk contest that's not even in the NBA right now.
And he won.
it.
And he was, and he should have. And if anybody would have tried to take it away from him, like
dude has got
he made it so you couldn't.
How tall is he?
6'2".
Got some hops.
Right, here we go,
man.
guys.
Yeah, he does.
Exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Revesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. It is Monday, February 19th. Thanks a lot for being with us today. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star joining us fresh off of his weekend at the NBA All-Star Game and festivities in Indianapolis. Dustin, first of all, how important and big is it to have an event of that stature in Indianapolis? I mean, I know that they have had the Super Bowl, the NCAA all the time, but this is just one of those events where all eyes are on the city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, it's big for them to get as many of these as they can. I mean, it was definitely a more complicated deal, and it wasn't as off without a hitch as some other big Indianapolis events have been. I got killed by traffic a lot. And so, but all the same, I mean, I think it does shine, Indy still does shine, even, like they caught some heck for the weather and everything, but, it's still just a really cool scene when you can walk from, Lucas Oil to Gainbridge to, the convention center, had the NBA crossover, which is kind of the fan fest, deal, And they had, basically everything at the convention center there. And that was really cool. They had some huge concerts in that venue. Lil Wayne was there yesterday. You missed it, Jim. I'm sure that was, high on your list.
Ironically, you bring up Lil Wayne because right here at the top of three little things I marked down to talk about, with just out of kind of comically, but there was a point this was the celebrity all-star game that was happening. He was one of the sideline coaches, I believe. All I could think about was Larry Bird walking over to Lil Wayne in an all-star game and what that conversation would have been like.
Would have loved to have known. There was so much. I mean, yeah, everybody involved was like, the number of people who get involved in this on a small level is fascinating, and like what they're like. But I mean, you'd be surprised how many celebrities and whatnot have actual basketball talent and whatnot. But yeah, no, I mean the star power was something else. I would have loved to have known that. But a couple cool things. Larry Bird, Jason Tatum met Larry Bird for the first time, which I thought was. I mean, Tatum even said, like, it's crazy. You wouldn't think this would be the case, obviously, because Tatum is the guy who's carrying the banner for that franchise and has been for, several years now. But they've never been in the same room until this week. And I thought that was really cool. So, like, actually, like, Tatum said, like, Larry Bird came in the, in the locker room beforehand. And
Tatum said, who's playing for second?
Pretty much. So he And yeah, and I guess Tatum was like, hey, I should meet him. Like, he was in and out, and I guess the Celtics PR person managed to find him and set up a meeting. And so they didn't talk for very long, but just like finally got to be around. And Tatum was like, wow, he also said he's bigger than I thought he was. He's taller than I realized. But Tatum said that, Larry told him that he was looking forward to meeting him too. And Larry was like, Tatum was like, it was just crazy that he said that. So there's still, I think, for as much as you talk about people maybe not respecting it as much as they should, those moments are still really cool. I mean, LeBron James made a point of hugging Oscar Robertson before he came off the floor. And there was a really beautiful tribute to Robertson during one of the timeouts. I think it was Jalen Rose, Mike Epps, and Spike Lee, basically came on and talked about his importance, basically as, the barriers he broke and the things he did, going back to Crispus Attucks. So that was, I think, definitely one of the coolest parts. More than anything else, I think what will shine, for Indiana in terms of their hosting of this is how they, incorporated the roots into this thing. And, Robertson in particular was a really big piece of that. I mean, there was a good focus on Crispus Attucks in this week. I know, I think they're going to, unveil an Oscar Robertson statue there. Tyrese Halliburton went there and gave all the kids new shoes, which I thought was really cool. Shout out to Chris Hawkins, is a guy that people who've been on the IU beat for a long time know pretty well. And so, as their coach, so he got to shine a little bit this week, which I thought was really cool. I thought Indiana did a really good job of incorporating that kind of stuff.
There was a very cool thing that I watched on TNT called Indiana Glory. Reggie Miller interviewing Isaiah Thomas and Larry Bird. I thought that was just pretty cool stuff there. And the funny thing though is, I forgot Larry fired Isaiah Thomas as coach, and Isaiah brought that up and said, I remember telling you then. He goes, I thought you were making a mistake. He goes, and I still tell you, I think that had you, it would have been great if it had been, this dynamic and whatnot. So that's something he still, I wishes he had not happened.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think obviously Isaiah carries and has, reason to carry a lot of, I don't even know what's the word I'm looking for here. I guess disappointment is the one.
Regrets.
Regrets leans on and stuff like that. Things that he still remembers. And I get it. I mean, like they did, obviously his team was nasty and beat up on people and everything. And, he carried a lot of, brunt from that, obviously getting, not getting to play on the Olympic team in 92, did he get frozen out in one of the All-Star games? Isaiah got frozen out, or
what was the? I was thinking the Olympic team, but
or did he? Yeah, I mean,
wasn't the most well liked.
No, and you get it based on how Detroit played and who they were and whatnot, but there was definitely a lot of just a lot of bad blood there, and I could see how he's still bothered by that. At this point, obviously things have changed. Everybody's growing older and gone into different places, but I think he's still bothered by some of those things, which I get. But those things stick around. And I thought, Reggie, we had an availability with Reggie on Friday. So it was before the show came out, and he said, that he was even surprised that he was allowed to go everywhere, with some of those questions. Because basically, like Reggie obviously having been the guy who's done TV, Isaiah's done TV, but Reggie's obviously done it more. And he was basically he said, I was thinking of it journalistically, and Reggie started to look at the world that way, because he's been in the business that long. And, he had a cool moment with Bob Kravitz too, which I thought was pretty cool, during that availability, saying, that he respected just the way Bob covered him, but said that
very nice.
That he learned things from Bob Kravitz and from, some of the other people that were on the beat at that time, and Bill Benner. And he said that, he went into that thinking, am I really allowed to ask whatever I want? And, whatever's interesting. And they told him he was. And so he was like, all right, well, let's go. Let's have some of these conversations and dig into these things that have, in some of these even old wounds, and dig into that stuff. It's like, if I'm allowed to do it, let me do it. And so he did. And so I didn't catch all of it. I think I caught the last half an hour. I think it's going to keep being on NBA TV. So I want to, watch the whole of that thing. But I thought that was cool. One, to see a former player kind of age into, being able to do that and having that mindset of, if I'm in this position, it is my job to unearth these things, because certainly that's not how you're taught as a player. You're taught to keep all that quiet. So yeah, no, I thought, but that was a really cool thing that they did. It was really cool that they, kind of centered those three guys, in general, in this week. They also centered Robertson. Just centering just the Indiana's past, I think was, a big theme for the weekend. And I thought they did a really good job of it.
Yeah, they had hats in front of all three of them. Of course, the Pacers hat in front of Reggie, the IU hat in front of Isaiah, and Indiana State hat in front of Larry. And then when they were holding the hats up at the end, Isaiah was saying, hey, you should hold this one. He gives him the IU hat quickly for a quick one. But that would have been amazing. But yeah, that was fun stuff to see. Definitely, I recommend going back and watching that if you can. Fun weekend. Now you got to get back to the real world, and the NBA gets back to its real world play as well. As Indiana in college, we had a big upset of Purdue over the weekend by one of the worst teams in the conference, Ohio State. And then Indiana, of course, losing at home to Northwestern as they needed a win. And now they face a Nebraska team coming in also needing a win. Indiana is just kind of a team in flux right now. They're just circling an orbit that
they're cooked.
Well, their season's cooked for sure. But even as a team, I don't know what is going on between the ears for all those guys, what they're thinking, where their mindset is. When you go into the last 6 games of a year that is done, it's that's going to be difficult to get that team motivated when they haven't seemed motivated throughout the season.
Yeah, obviously I didn't get a chance to watch it at all on Saturday. We were
right.
Was it Sunday? They played Sunday.
Sunday.
Yeah. I don't know who played what day. Obviously college was just sort of a blur in the background for me this week. I did catch a little of UConn stomping Marquette on
how about that
Saturday? Yeah, UConn's looking good, man. UConn,
and they've separated themselves from the rest because Purdue was the only team thought to be in that.
I still think
they get beat by Ohio State.
I still think Purdue's there. I mean, that's a dumb loss, but it's still February. They'll get right. I mean, Edie's still a problem, and obviously don't know what's going to happen in the tournament. But I mean, I think they're better built for it than they were. So I'm not going to rule Purdue out by any means. But UConn looks good, and so I think that's the It has been hard for anybody to separate themselves in this season, but UConn, Marquette's a good team, and stomping Marquette like that is
this time of year, no less.
Yeah. At this stage, when everybody kind of knows what you're going to do, like to come out and just blow somebody away like they did Marquette. I mean, that is something that is legit. So I think, obviously Indiana's in a weird place. And there's just, I can sense, even when I'm not watching the games, I can sense the rising anger on social media. You could just tell. And certainly I'm sure wearing all black jerseys did not help, in that regard whatsoever. So, not that it was the player's call or anything like that, but I mean, just sort of like angering of, IU fans of like, we used to be a proper team. And so I think, you just don't get the sense that that they know what to do to pull themselves out of it. That again, like I'm certainly watching it from 10,000 feet or more. Like I said, I didn't watch the game. I just, saw the box score and I just didn't, it was close, but still, like, you're not supposed to just come close against Northwestern if you're Indiana. I mean, and Northwestern is a good team, and this is one of the better versions of Northwestern you've seen. But yeah, it doesn't bode well. It doesn't bode well at all. And against Purdue, you could sense that they weren't even on the same planet.
He agrees. He certainly agrees, and I cannot argue.
Sorry.
Well, brother, what is up next for you?
What is up next for me? I don't know. I feel like we put so much into this All-Star break, but yeah, I mean, they get back rolling Thursday with the Pistons. We'll have certainly more coverage throughout the week. I'll be able to start fully focusing on, it's not the second half of the year, but the post-break period starting this week, do some, kind of leading up stuff and got some features in the books, there's a ton of stuff on our website, this week about, between All-Star Saturday night, between everything that came out of last night. I know Greg Doyle was ripping Damian Lillard a new one for winning MVP in Tyrese Halliburton's hometown. So, check out all our stuff. There's a whole bunch of All-Star coverage left, and we'll go get back to normal Pacers coverage, starting towards the middle of this week.
Make sure you're giving Dustin a follow at the Indy Star and for his complete coverage of the Pacers and much more. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, Jim.
Dustin Dopirak and Maxine here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Up next, Travis Miller joins us from Boiler Upload, and we've got much more as well, brought to you by our friends at Reynolds Family Dentistry down in Sellersburg. Those of you in Southern Indiana keeping up that championship smile, go see our good friend Dr. J, and back with more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Formerly.
Good morning, Travis.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Man, we got stuff to talk about this time rather than, oh goodness, how good is Purdue? How good is Purdue? Hey, we lost a game.
To a team that you probably had no business losing to be honest.
You can take probably out of that. They suck.
I think
they're the worst. They're the second worst team in the league.
It can
happen to anybody.
It's still a tier 1 win, and they're talented. They beat Alabama earlier in the year, and Alabama gave Purdue a hell of a game. So I'm not. I just think that Purdue had an off game, and Ohio State played well. That happens in the Big Ten.
It happens everywhere. It certainly does.
Wisconsin lost at Michigan, and I think Michigan's a lot worse than Ohio State.
Who did?
Wisconsin lost at Michigan.
Not this weekend.
Not this weekend, but earlier this year.
In their four. I was going to say their 4-game losing streak was a little shocking.
Now it's up to 5 and 6 games. So I don't know what happened to them.
I've never seen a team fall like they have.
It's just crazy, man. At least there's some drama now in the Big Ten race.
Yeah.
Well, I was looking at that. I thought it was they still have a 2-game lead over Illinois.
It's only one in the loss column, though.
Oh, Illinois must be a game differential.
Yeah.
Purdue has played one more game so far. So yeah it's going to be and Purdue has to go to Illinois, right?
Right. So I mean, if Illinois could run the table the rest of the way, that game in Illinois at Champaign will be really interesting. So
it's and daggone UConn, Matty. They just whoo.
I think they're now the definitive number 1 team until proven otherwise.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
I can't believe. I mean, you put a beat down like they did on Marquette. Wow.
Marquette's good. Marquette was playing well too.
Yep.
All right, here we go, guys.
Brand new Honda with no payments for 90 days. That's right. 2023 and 2024 Honda Pilots, HRVs, CRVs, Honda Ridgelines, payment free for 90 days. Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to anymoreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. Thanks a lot for being with us. A big post-weekend, big sports weekend. Of course, the All-Star game in Indianapolis, all that went on with that, which was pretty cool. And Indiana and Purdue both in action, both losing. Indiana at home to Northwestern in a game they easily could have won, just fundamentally just losing on fundamentals. Purdue goes over to Columbus, and very, very shocking loss, of course. Anybody that loses to Ohio State right now would be surprising. But the fact that they just fired Chris Holtmann, maybe that gave this team a jolt of adrenaline. I'm not sure, but the ability to overcome a team like Purdue, pretty surprising. But more importantly, it actually makes this Big Ten race close, as Illinois, a game and a half back. They have to play a game yet, but Travis Miller from Boiler Upload joins us. And man, this is with Purdue having to go to Illinois. This is going to be something fun to watch.
Yeah, I think so too. And you look at yesterday's loss for Purdue, I think it was a combination of factors. Zach Edey got in some foul trouble, and Purdue's bench has not done a lot of late. I believe they only had like 4 points off the bench yesterday, and Ohio State played well. They hit some tough shots in the first half, and they were able to play some really good defense on Edey. They had, I think, at least 4 or 5 steals where Edey brought the ball down and they were able to swipe it right out of his hands. And that was actually one of the definitive plays of the game. After Purdue had fought back to tie it, Ohio State went down, hit a short jumper with about a minute left. Purdue came down 2. They were working it into Edey, and Zed Key got in there, got a huge steal, and they were able to work the ball down, hit some free throws, and seal the game from there. So I really think it was a combination of Ohio State playing well. They're still a talented team. They beat Alabama earlier in the year, and that's a really, really good win. And Purdue you have those off days, and you cannot have off days anywhere in the Big Ten. It doesn't matter if it's at Illinois for second place or at Ohio State, who's in 13th place right now. So you've got to be able to overcome when things are not going well, and Purdue just did not do that yesterday.
No, and not shocking in college basketball to see that happen, but Purdue is a team that their biggest nemesis has been losing to teams that they shouldn't lose to. We've seen that happen in the tournament here of late, and I know for Purdue fans, that loss has to shake them and scare the ever living daylights out of them.
Well, the good news is we don't have to play in Columbus anymore. The FDU loss was in Columbus. This was in Columbus. We no longer have to go to Columbus, Ohio until sometime next Big Ten season, maybe, depending on how that works out. But, I agree. Purdue's biggest opponent is Purdue, honestly. If Purdue is playing its best game and at its high level, it's going to be extremely hard for anybody in the country to beat them, short of like a UConn or an Arizona or an Alabama or a Tennessee. And Purdue beat Alabama, Tennessee, and Arizona this year. So just their ceiling is so much higher than everybody else's that it's going to take a game where they just don't have it. And there were a couple of scenes yesterday. Fletcher Lawyer was pretty quiet. Ohio State limited Purdue to only 9 3-point attempts. Purdue usually shoots 21 a game. And so their perimeter defense limited the looks. Braden Smith had a couple moments where he kind of just dribbled into trouble and didn't know what to do. And that was one of the hallmarks of what happened last season when things would go bad. So as long as they don't become trends going forward, I think Purdue will be fine. I mean, this is a team that's still leading the Big Ten. They still have a full game lead on Illinois. Yeah, they got to go to Illinois, but Illinois has to be perfect the rest of the way otherwise just to catch Purdue. Purdue's still going to be the number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament as long as they win the Big Ten. So all their goals are in front of it. This is a team that when it's playing well, just, it's very hard to beat them. So can they get back to that level? Can they right the ship here? And I think they've got an excellent opportunity to fix things here. They've got Rutgers next, who has given them trouble the last few years, played them tough in Piscataway earlier this season. Then they've got to go to Michigan on Sunday. And honestly, you've got to take care of business against a team like Michigan. As much as Ohio State has struggled, there is still a team that's over 500. They're a top 75 net team. Michigan is without question this year the worst team in the Big Ten. And they have struggled against everybody. And I think if Purdue loses either of these next 2 games, with Rutgers being in Mackey Arena and then at last place Michigan, that is when you've got to kind of sound the alarm if there's real problems.
Yeah, and like I said, it's not shocking to see a team get beat in college basketball, period. That happens. I'm sure that, like I said, it was a shock to Purdue fans just because of who it came to. But sometimes that shock to the system is a good thing, and we'll see how that works out as Purdue continues to aim for another Big Ten title, which it's going to be fun to watch. If Illinois can do what they need to do, can they keep up their end of the bargain and make this a race up until they play Purdue in a couple of games? And whether or not it's the fact that it's at Illinois, that's not the most formidable place to play. That's one of those places, and I think Purdue has a little bit of this, although it is formidable. But they have some lounge chairs down at the bottom of their seating area. At least they used to the last time I was over there in Champaign.
Yeah, they like to put their student section, I know, behind the scorers table and everything else. And it's a very similar atmosphere to Mackey Arena. But Purdue's played well. They won over there, I believe, 2 years ago in a double overtime game. I can't remember if they played there last year or not, but it should be an interesting game. I know there's a lot of, there's been a lot of chirping this year on the message boards between Illinois fans and Purdue fans, and Illinois fans are doing we lost in West Lafayette, but we didn't have Terrence Shannon Jr. in that game. So, it should be a great Big Ten game, but Illinois has got to take care of their own business. Their next game, they go to Penn State, and as I'm sure you're aware, teams can fall asleep there in the Bryce Jordan Mausoleum. There's no atmosphere whatsoever. The Penn State fan sometimes gets a little rowdy, and it's not unheard of for the Nittany Lions to shock somebody. And then they still have to go to Wisconsin, which, as much as Wisconsin has struggled, they always defend their home court pretty well. So those are 2 of the games that Illinois has got to get through before they play Purdue. And it wouldn't surprise me if they dropped one of them. But if they hold serve and Purdue hold serve, that's going to be a really, really good game in the Big Ten race.
Overall, the Big Ten, I'm still wondering what they are going to do as a conference in this tournament. even though Northwestern gets the win over Indiana, they are going to have to learn to play without Tiberi, which maybe that helps them. Maybe that's better that this happened with 6-7 games to go, so they can learn how to do that, because that is going to be something that they have to do when they hit the tournament. Illinois, the same for them. And then you've got a couple of teams that are, or Michigan State also coming on. They're probably one of the top 4 teams in the Big Ten, I'd say. Then you've got teams like Nebraska who have a shot at making the tournament, a real shot at making the tournament, but I'm not sure what they can do once they get there. Because you look at the Big 12, a conference that has 14 teams, but they're going to put 10 teams into that tournament, man.
Yeah, I just think it's a down year overall. You can't get anybody that has some sustained momentum outside of Purdue and Illinois, really. Purdue, Illinois, Wisconsin, I think are locks at this point, even with Wisconsin's recent struggles. Michigan State has played their way into lock status. I think they're going to be just fine. But really, aside from that, only Northwestern and Nebraska are kind of on that bubble / feeling pretty good about themselves. I don't think anybody else is going to make it other than those 6. Maryland has had some chances to play their way into the tournament, and they've just been unable to sustain some momentum. I think Minnesota is a rising team. I think that they are improving. They're the most improved team in the conference, but they just don't have the computer numbers and haven't been able to string some wins together in order to get into that discussion. And aside from that, everybody else is just kind of fallen by the wayside, and it's a battle. You got a lot of NIT teams, but you don't have a lot of NCAA teams.
Yeah, and we'll find out, unfortunately. What happened? Purdue, again, they're going to have a number 1 seed. What happens if they fall short of the Final Four? What does that mean for the program? What's the pulse of the fans going to be with this? Because they have a great shot with a generational player in Zach Edey.
I think it depends on where they fall short. If they lose in a tight Elite 8 game to a 2 seed, I'm not sure who's all battling for a 2 seed, but like a Tennessee, an Arizona, a Marquette, teams that they've already beaten this year, but they were in close competitive games. I think that's going to be forgiven more than if they have a first weekend loss again. Obviously, another 16 seed loss is catastrophic. And I honestly think a second round loss in an 8-9 to an 8-9 team would be catastrophic. I mean, this team at least bare minimum has to make the second weekend. And then once you're there, I also think that they have to win that Sweet 16 game. Matt Painter is, I think, 1-6 in the Sweet 16 in his career. He's had a lot of teams just reach that level and not do anything after that. They've had some questionable Sweet 16 losses. They've had some blowout Sweet 16 losses. And I think they've got to at least make the Elite 8 for the fans to be satisfied. And then once you're there, who knows what can happen? I mean, you don't get to the Elite 8 without playing a good team there. You've got to beat somebody good to get to the Final Four. And this team has proven they can do that. But there is definitely a sense of, if it's not this year, then when is it going to happen?
Yeah, that's my question is how I would think that it's Final Four or bust for Purdue. And that's not saying a national championship, but at least Final Four, something they have not accomplished since 1980 with a team that I don't know that next year, and most likely when Zach Edey leaves, this is going to be a completely different Purdue team. So this is the last year of having this unique player that is dominated college basketball for the last 2 years.
I agree. And, Purdue's still going to be good going forward. They've had some good recruiting classes, and Matt Painter does a great job of adjusting his team to the personnel he has on hand. But when you've got Zach Edey, who seems very likely to win his second straight National Player of the Year, I tend to agree. They've got to make a Final Four. They just have to. And it's not just having Edey and having these 2 seasons in a row. It's seeing what they have done this year with him and who they have beaten. yeah, nobody's going undefeated in college basketball. It just doesn't happen anymore. It's if Gonzaga couldn't do it during the COVID bubble year, then nobody's going to do it. But Purdue is beaten I think they've got like 4 top 10 net wins right now. I'm not talking tier 1. I'm talking top 10. Marquette, Alabama, Arizona, Tennessee, Illinois is still an extremely good win. Gonzaga is a good win. I mean, this team has gotten it done. They've won 34 or 35 consecutive non-conference games, but they've lost to 2 piddly schools in New Jersey in the tournament the last 2 years. I cannot explain it. Maybe dark forces really are at work at this point, because there's no reason for them to struggle this much in the tournament. And what I don't want to see is them getting in a tight game late in the NCAA tournament, because they have gotten really, really tight against FDU, against St. Peter's, and they weren't able to get it done. And, honestly, 2 years ago when Jaden Ivey hit a late 3 to clinch the Texas game in the second round, that was the kind of game Purdue has gotten tight before and lost. And it looked like he had, finally gotten them over that hump, because it was a 3-point game.
No, you're not allowed to say that word, that phrase. I'm kidding. I'm sorry I interrupted, but I had to.
But yeah, Jaden Ivey, he hits that shot, and it really looked like they had finally gotten past some demons there. And then 5 days later, they lose to St. Peter's. So this team will be judged by what happens in March. It always was going to be judged by what happens in March. The Big Ten is going to, if they win the Big Ten again, that's great. They go 28-3, 27-4. They win another Big Ten title, go into the tournament with 30 wins. It's going to be great. In a lot of people's eyes, none of it's going to matter without 4 wins in March.
And there has to be pressure on Matt Painter, and not that he would acknowledge it, and maybe he doesn't feel it. Maybe he's been doing this long enough to where he can keep that separate. But man, that pressure has to be there. One would think, knowing what he's got, knowing what has happened, whether by sheer luck in the past, bad luck, or whatnot, a lot of pressure just because it didn't happen for Gene Katie, nor has it happened for Matt, who's a good coach. Don't get me wrong, a great guy as well. But at the end of the day, you're judged on the big the end of the year deal, and that pressure. I cannot imagine the pressure that has to be there, whether acknowledged or not, with the player that he has in Zach Edey and everybody around him.
Yeah, and honestly, as good as Matt Painter is, and as much as that pressure is there, the players still have to go out and do it. I mean, Matt Painter can drop a great play. The guy misses a shot, the play doesn't matter. I don't want to put too much on the players there or anything, or say that they are, underperforming in any way, shape, or form. But at the end of the day, Matt Painter is only part of that equation.
Yep.
I give you that Virginia game as an example. The season before, Purdue was playing Tennessee in the Bahamas, and they were leading by 3. Matt Painter elected not to foul, and Tennessee hit a tying 3 with like 5 seconds left, won the game in overtime. A year later against Virginia, exact same position. Purdue is leading by 3. There's less than 10 seconds left. Matt Painter elects to foul. And then you have that Virginia play happen, where they hit one free throw, get the rebound, and tie it. So you have 2 instances there where you have 2 choices. He made each choice in both, one choice in one choice in the other, and they both didn't work out. Is that on Matt Painter? No. I mean, sometimes things like that happen. And if you get to the tournament and you just have a bad game, I mean, 2 years ago against St. Peter's was honestly Jaden Ivey's worst game of his Purdue career. He was terrible in that game. Fantastic player, looked like he was going to be the guy to lead him. Had an awful game. If he has merely a bad game, Purdue easily beats St. Peter's. So sometimes it just happens, and Purdue has got to find a way to not have one of these extenuating circumstances prevent it. And, you've had injuries do it. You have Isaac Haas getting hurt in the middle of the 2018 tournament. You've had the weird play against Virginia. I can't explain what is going on against this program once the month of March starts, but this has got to be the year. It hopefully is the year they finally slay some demons there, because, man, if it's not, I don't know what they're going to do, man. I really don't.
Absolutely. Up next, Rutgers and then Michigan for the Boilers, and we'll see you again next week. But, brother, thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Travis Miller from Boiler Upload. Make sure, especially if you're a Purdue fan, go give him a follow. Keep up with what's going on there and much more. We've got more coming up on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our friends at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, down in southern Indiana, right off of I-65. Pizza, burgers, beer, great place to catch a game, and fresh food made every day. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
All right. Who do you have lined up to talk to?
I've got Woody and or Gabe Cups, excuse me.
What is Woody at? Do you know?
Man, that was I had what did I get him pulled up saying earlier? I think it's just kind of a general question, so you can just kind of set it up as thoughts on what went wrong kind of thing. And then Gabe Cups was kind of a similar thing, I would say.
A good one. I wanted to have you get Todd Leary. Benny and the Jets. Hey. Benny and the Jets.
All righty, dighty. Boy, I can't believe uniforms are that much of a discussion.
Really? Is that what they're talking about still?
Oh, I know, but it just, excuse me.
All right, here we go.
One-stop shop for high-quality meats, bakery items, and now fresh seafood. Chop Shop Market and Table has the largest selection of in-house made products around and everything you need to make a gourmet meal at home. Or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday. Thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate you as always. Jim Coyle here. Just finished up with Travis Miller from Boiler Upload. Purdue taking an L this weekend, making the Big Ten race somewhat more exciting than I think most people would have expected. most of us expected Purdue to be at the top without question. I don't think any of us expected there to be just one game difference going into the last month or 5 weeks of the how much? Well, I guess it's less than a month. What am I talking about? A couple of weeks left in the March 10th, Purdue's last game. So is it 2.5 weeks? Thereabouts. 3 weeks. Last 3 weeks of the conference season. A lot of complaints about Indiana's uniforms yesterday. I guess that it just didn't stuff like that. It's got to be really bad for it to be of an issue for me. I couldn't have cared less about the colors. Apparently, I did mention, though, that they did look like practice gear to me. That would be something that I would not prefer if I were a fan to see. But, you know, it's just it's something else that they can sell, I would imagine. And IU fans like to get that gear. Yeah, Fear of God is the designer. Could you name the uniforms anything worse for a team? Not sure why that would matter, but let's see. Bradley liked the black jerseys, and actually they weren't black. I think they were like a really deep charcoal gray, personally. But I'm the same with you, Bradley. I'm like, I don't know. It's good to change things up. No biggie. That's roll on. You've got so much bigger concerns than those uniforms. I mean, that should have been the last thing people were complaining about yesterday. It should have been the lack of free throw shooting. It should have been the inability to keep Northwestern off of the offensive boards. It should have been not forcing Northwestern to turn the ball over. It should have been the fact that you didn't pick up the pace, although it was shown strictly by statistics that is where you exceeded. And the only area that Indiana exceeded Northwestern was in the pace game with 14-0 fast break points. So, yeah, plenty of other things to talk about, complain about. I'm trying to read some of these comments as we get through. But while we do that, John has Mike Woodson's comments after the game yesterday, after Northwestern knocks Indiana off. And let's hear what he had to say.
Well, again, I thought the 50-50 balls they beat us to tonight, and we played smaller. You know, when Malik got in foul trouble early, we went small. And then coming down the stretch, I had McKenzie at the 4. So, you know, I mean, we have to utilize our strengths when we're on the floor being big, but it didn't help us tonight.
And so what does that say? I mean, I don't understand what that even everybody can see that. Why is the question? Why? After every game, the question is, but why? We know that. We can see that. We can see that Indiana got outshot at the free throw line. We can see that their turnovers led to an 11-0 points off break. We can see all these things, but why? Why and why aren't these things going away? That's the question at hand. And I don't see accountability by anybody on that team. And that's the problem. From the coaching down, Accountability. There's nobody's taking accountability. There's no leader on the floor, off the floor, and no accountability. I mean, that's easy, I guess, for me to say, but I don't know that I see a difference in that. And hey, I'm likely to be as wrong as rain, but I'm open to that. Gabe Cupps also met with the media yesterday, and probably he was the fourth leading scorer for the Hoosiers yesterday with 8 points. He did hit 2 of his three-point attempts, which he probably should have put up 6. Mbako was 3 of 6. He probably should have put up 12. Galloway was 1 of 3. He should have put up more probably. Leo 0 for 2. Walker missed his only 1. Gunn missed his only 1. Khalil Ware missed his only 3-point attempt. Malik Renew missed his only 3-point attempt. So you only had 3 people connecting from deep yesterday. Made a difference. But let's hear what Gabe Cupps had to say.
Yeah, I mean, we shoot a lot of free throws in practice because, you know, the coaches and we obviously see that that's something that we can get better at. So, I mean, I think it's just, it all comes down to confidence and just the mentality you approach the line with. So I think it's much more mental than physical. We get the reps in throughout the week and we have been all season. So, you know, we just got to step up and knock them down with confidence.
Okay, well, then what is the lack thereof in confidence at the free throw line? You know, nobody's going to come along and block your shot. You know the distance is the exact same. You're at home. This is something you do all the time. This is something that kids much younger than you do successfully. Kids in high school do more successfully. Why is it such? I want to know, why is this such a, if it's a mental problem, which Todd Leary thinks it's not, it's more than that, that there are just some flaws, some shooting flaws, which I think it's a combination of the two. But why? Why is it mental? Why does Indiana have this mental problem that all of these other teams don't? And I'm talking 300 Division I teams. Why? It's not accidental. There are reasons. You cannot be that much worse than virtually everybody else that's playing the game with the talent that they have. There's a reason. What is that reason, or what are those reasons, and why is it that being dug into, examined, looked at, figured out? I don't know. I'm just asking the questions. But that's just one of those things. It's like, dude, not consistently being bad at free throws and some guys getting worse. Mackenzie Mbako, like I said, started the season hitting 23 straight. Yesterday, he was 5 of 8. It's okay, but it's just okay. And he's your best free throw shooter. Khalil Ware, 2 of 5. That's not even okay. Trey Galloway, 2 of 4, 50%. Anthony Leal, he had 1 shot at it, 1 opportunity, missed it. How can these guys that are much better shooters than they are appearing to be at the free throw line have become what they are? It's not an accident. I'm open to suggestions as to why. I certainly don't know. Gary says 2 of Trey's fouls were intentional at the end of the game. Yeah. and a lot of things go in it that happen at the end of the game that kind of skew some of these stats. But Malik Renew, as Don said, this is something he struggled with last year. And I thought he had kind of gotten away from the fouling. But if it comes back now, it just shows, is there just a lack of focus now because of frustration where they are in the season? A young team. Yeah. That's, I guess. I don't, they are young as far as Mackenzie Mbako was a freshman, but you've got Trey Galloway, who is not, Anthony Leal, who is not, Malik Renew, who is not. He has logged more than enough minutes to be considered a veteran. So, yeah, they're young on paper, but they're not young in minutes. That is funny. I'm going to have to give you that one, Brian S. Hump 27, Woodson O. Sean asking, which was worse, Lil Rhodey's last year or this year? Well, that story's yet to be told, to be honest. But I would like to go back and compare statistically those teams. It's a good question. But I can tell you one thing, nothing is changing. Russell mentioned earlier about buyouts and that information was not quite right. Tom Crean's buyout was $4 million, but they have bought out already the two previous basketball coaches. If things don't change, it's going to be 3 straight. That's not a good look for the administration. And it has to bring great frustration for those that are putting money forth into the program, for those that put money to try to support the program. But that's what it takes until Indiana gets it right. But I think that there has to be accountability again. You know, I talked about accountability on this team. Well, there's got to be some accountability behind the team. I think that this Animal House thing where everything's okay, don't worry about it, while the entire group of people are about to run you over, you can't pretend that everything's just okay. It's not okay. And I think not acknowledging it, I know that nobody wants to have those conversations. Hell, I don't want to have them. I don't want to have to talk about it. It would be a lot better if Indiana were winning to talk about. It's a lot better to talk about anybody winning. Whether you're a Purdue fan, Indiana fan, Butler fan. But you can look up the road at Hinkle Fieldhouse and see what Thad Matta has done with Butler. Slowly working and turning that program back into a program that's going to make the NCAA tournament, I would say. I think. I'd have to look again to see exactly where they are, but I think they're pretty well entrenched. They're like in the 40s in KenPom. But these things are not accidental. You go down the line, certain teams are really good in certain areas. It doesn't matter if you're talking football, basketball, whatever. If Rutgers, one of the best defensive teams in the country, unfortunately, they might not have the offense to go with it.
1 minute.
I cannot thank Greg Rakestraw enough from the Indiana ISC Sports Network. Don Fischer, of course, the voice of the Hoosiers, Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star, and Travis Miller from Boy Upload Enough. Most importantly, thanks to you guys, each and every one of you, for allowing us to be here. If not, we'd be bored talking to each other. Thanks to John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines. We're back tomorrow to do this again. Of course, Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News joins us, Chronic Hoosier. And I believe Mike Nislek will probably be along as well. So, appreciate you guys. And until tomorrow, go out and have yourselves a great start to the week. I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.